Hey Gina, how are you?
And black and proud, and I am so happy to see your face.
I am happy to see you too, Gina Paige from African Ancestry. And for those who don't know Gina Paige, let me introduce you real quick so we can get into the thick of it because you know we have a lot to talk about. Dr. Gina Paige is the president and co-founder of African Ancestry. She is not only a pioneer in this industry, but she is a public speaker, entrepreneur. You've revealed people like Oprah Winfrey, John Legend, Chadwick Boseman, and I am
Dean Dorsey.
myself, Jodine Dorsey. You're right. I know that's right. And I'm happy to say that you guys, African Ancestry, is the world leader in tracing maternal and paternal lineages of African descent, helping more than 750,000 people. That it's got to be more now, right?
Yes, more now.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure we've tapped 1 million by now.
I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. And before we get started and talk about Blackness, because that's what this is all about, Blackness, how are you? With COVID happening, people shutting down, businesses shutting down. I know you guys, you own your own business as an entrepreneur, as Dr. Gina Paige. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
So professionally, we're doing well. People are interested in where they're from now. I think all this time that people have spent at home, going through family documents, pictures, having Zooms with their family, sharing stories, that's making people think about legacy, is making them think about ancestry. And so professionally, we're holding on. We've had to make some changes internally that have been, have required adjustment.
Right.
But professionally, knock on wood, we're doing just fine. And then personally, I'm doing fine too. I'm black and proud, girl. And so that that's just my answer all the time. I'm black and proud but I will say that I wasn't too, I've been careful, but I've never felt like, oh, I can't go anywhere. Oh, I can't get carry out, none of that. But then once they started opening up cities, I kind of had a reverse reaction. I was like, ooh, I don't want to go anywhere. Ooh, I don't want to.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of weird for me because at first I was fine and now I'm feeling a little more cautious.
I agree with you. I've experienced the same thing. At first I was like, yeah, we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna do this. And as soon as they started opening up, it was like, well, we need you in Maryland. Do I really want to go to Maryland right now? Is traveling like my thing right now? I don't know, but I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And talking about interesting, I want to talk about the interesting time that we're in right now. It just seems like only us as a people could protest, rally around justice, injustices, going hard in the paint, making sure our voices are heard, and at the same time celebrate everything that we are, our Blackness. We have been celebrating how Black we are. It's been like a surge of celebration. Not that we've never celebrated before, and not like hashtag Black Girl Magic has never been a thing, but it's been a surge of celebration, even by corporations and businesses. How are you feeling about this? Like, how does this make you, who's been in the business of Black since the beginning of time, how are you feeling about this surge and this expression of celebration of Blackness?
I feel a few ways. First of all, I'm glad to see our people embracing our Blackness and wanting to learn and wanting to explore and being outspoken and being unapologetic and in your face about it. Like you said, going hard in the paint. I love that. I saw somebody said it best. I feel like a side eye to the corporations. But my takeaway there are two things. So first thing that happened, Jodine, was 23andMe, as you know, is one of our colleagues in the industry, right? They don't have any Black scientists. They have like one Black person, and she was a genetics counselor, and they sat her, she didn't get to sit with the other genetic counselors. They sat her outside the president's desk, office, so that when people came, they'd see a Black person. But that's a whole nother story, right? anyway, their president and co-founder, she sent a letter, one of those letters, and put it in a black background with white type, talking about all these things. We're Eurocentric. We don't have any diversity above director level, all these things. And we know we need to do better. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, so now you're admitting all those things. You've been, you've been using us, taking our DNA, not being upfront about what you're doing. And now you want to write a letter. So, right. But that's one thing. But then what it also makes me realize is that, and I hope everybody else Black realizes this, is they're doing it because they understand the value of our economic power. That's the only reason they're doing it. They're not doing it because they care. They're doing it because they don't want to lose us as consumers. And so if they understand the power of our dollar, then we need to understand the power of our dollar. There's no confusion about it. It's not because they care.
Right,
this
right.
Is all economics.
Is it sustainable? Like, is this wave, is this surge, is it sustainable? I mean, can we say that this is going to be demanding more Black programming, demanding more Black visibility, demanding more Black leaderships, demanding more Black participation? Are we gonna see this for the long haul, or is this kind of like a temporary fix?
I hope it's for the long haul. Maybe if people see change as a result of their efforts, they'll continue. But you know, Jodine, this is just the extension of what our ancestors have done before us. Our ancestors and our grandmothers and our mothers and our fathers. This is nothing new. So let's hope that, because these are such unusual times, that it will have an unusual result, and that will be us continuing the charge.
So talk to me about that. You say this is something that our ancestors have gone through before, or how important is the spirit and understanding of our ancestors as we continue telling our story, telling our Blackness? Some people may struggle with that, or some people may have trouble with that. Like, what do you say to that?
Yeah, well, by ancestors, I'm not saying you have to look all the way back thousands of years. I'm talking about your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your aunts. You know, I mean, people who, some of them aren't even, they're still with us, so they wouldn't be considered ancestors. I think that is critical. You learn from the past, right? And we all know that with everything, it's so much easier when you don't recreate the wheel.
Right.
We already have a wheel. We got a bunch of wheels. We don't need to recreate them. We just need to learn from them and improve upon them. Or, you know, learn from them and in that improvement, do something completely different. But at least you're doing it with a base of a knowledge base. Nothing works without a knowledge base. So that's why I think it's important to look at what those who've come before us have done and accomplished. How did they do it? What worked? What didn't work? What will apply now? What won't?
Right. Would you say this is a good time for folks to start tracing, to start getting an understanding of not just their ancestors, but their story with African ancestry? I mean, is this a good time? Is the timing?
I think so. I definitely think, I believe so. I know so. It's not even a thought. Part of what gives us the strength to protest, to stand up, to do all the things that you mentioned earlier, we didn't just wake up and have that. Right. Part of what gives us the ability to do that is the fact that we come from a resilient people, a brilliant people, an accomplished people. And so I would argue that for those of us for whom this is not new, for, you know, this protest, this standing up, look, tracing your ancestry is a form of protest. It's a form of political resistance. So, because we weren't supposed to know who we are. And it's better, and clearly there's power in it. Otherwise, they would not have disconnected us from it. And so using a Black company to reconnect with your Africanness is the ultimate form of political resistance. But
And
besides that, I just think knowing who you are can own, or where you're from can only enhance who you are.
yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting because the African American or just the African based people story is such a complex one, right? Especially here in the United States. You got folks who are like, my family's from South Carolina, and that's their identity. That's what they see as their identity point, right? Then you got some that are, like my parents came from Jamaica or Haiti or what have you, and then that identity stops there. But for me, when I took the test and I learned that my mother's side of the family is from Sierra Leone, the northern region, the Tenme people, um, the story got real. The story, my identity, the story of people being taken away and stripped of their culture, their land, their families, being taken here to be in the enslaved industry, became so real. It's the word that I'm looking for. It's not culture shock, but it was like this realization that everything that I've been learning about my ancestry and slavery and these stories is actually real. It's like
I see what
hurtful
you're
and happy.
saying. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like it's hard to explain, but it was like a hurtful and happy response.
yeah. It becomes real.
Yeah.
And you know what makes it real is the fact that there was something before it. There was
Mm,
something before slavery in the Americas, because we're not always taught that.
right.
We're taught that that's our beginning. And so that's one of the benefits, I think, of tracing your ancestry and understanding where your mother's 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 mother was 500 years ago, 401 years ago, whatever it is that you understand that you are part of a continuum.
Right.
It didn't start on the shores of America or on the shores of Haiti or Cuba. It started before the west coast of Africa. It started in Kemet, and this little bit of time that we are taught to believe has made us who we are is just a blip on the continuum. It takes Tony Browder of the IKG Cultural Center to say it best, but that's such a small amount of time. We invented all this stuff, Jodine. We invented the sciences, we invented language, we invented writing, we invented music. I mean, we invented it all. And if you know that as your starting point, then you're just improving upon what your people already started instead, or already created, instead of trying to, think you're one man or one woman on an island fighting by yourself.
Right. Right. And then there's this level of the demand for equality just looks a little bit more differently when you understand you're not just 3/5 of a human being.
Not at all.
When you are a whole person and you get that wholeness from before slavery, right? Yeah.
And imagine that if we walked around with that belief system from the beginning, then would we really be demanding equality? Because we really are, we have it. We have equality, and we can create the systems and the institutions and all of those things as we see fit to work for us, instead of trying to jerry rig ourselves to fit in somebody else's system that doesn't intend for us to be there in the first place, at least not as a full participant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The the hesitation I get a lot with people that want to take the test or are curious about the test, the hesitation I always get, it never fails when I start talking about African ancestry or just tracing your DNA overall, right? Is those companies sell your DNA information, or they're doing something with your DNA. There's this like trust, there's this mistrust that we have, rightfully so. Yeah. Rightfully so, because what history has taught us is that they get our information and do strange things with them, or decide that they're going to test and we become guinea pigs for drugs, for new styles of surgery, whatever the case may be, we are always the guinea pigs. We're the lab test right here, right? So rightfully so, there's a mistrust when you start thinking about DNA, when you start thinking anything that has to do with my genetic makeup.
Right.
African ancestry, is it transparency here, Gina? What are we doing with our DNAs?
Nothing. We take your DNA, we answer the question of where your maternal ancestor is from or your paternal ancestor, and then our lab destroys the genetic material, and that's it. We don't sell it, we don't share it, we don't share your personal information or your genetic information. We have not from day one, because we are a Black-owned company that was co-founded by a Black geneticist. So we understood from the beginning all of those things that you just said. There's no way we would have been in business for over 17 years, Jodine, if we were doing that. Black people wouldn't stand for that. And we don't want to do it. We don't want it. We're in the business of your identity. And so once we tell you that, that's all there is. But one of the things I want to say is that besides the fact that we have a legally binding contract with you that we do not sell or share your genetic information, and that our lab destroys all of the DNA material. I want people to think about this in terms of value. So when we go to the doctor, we give blood, we don't even think of it as giving our genetic material. We don't think about it remember when it used to be before all this technology, the lab tech would handwrite your name. Sometimes they still do. Handwrite your name on the tube.
Right. They still do. At some
right.
point.
Right. You don't ever once say, where are you sending my DNA? Where are you sending my blood? What's going to happen to it? Same thing with urine. We take urine tests. Same thing. But I argue that we don't, because the value of that test result is so important to us that we're willing to not even think to ask the question. In our case, with AfricanAncestry.com, and we're the only company that does not sell or share your personal or genetic information, I ask you, what is the value to you? How important is it to you to know this information? And if it's important to you, then I think you should trust what we say, trust the contract, trust our credibility, trust our receipts, our years in the game.
Right.
If you still don't want to do that, you don't have to put your name. We don't need your name. We have people who send in samples, customer 123, Mr. X. We don't need your name. And so when you send your DNA to us, the people who handle your genetic information at the lab, they never see your personal information.
Wow.
Even if you don't believe that, if you just don't put your name, then we won't know who you are. So there are ways, if you really want this information and you just want to trust us, but you can't.
Right.
Then just don't put your name on it.
Wow. Talking about 17 years, you've been in the business of being Black for the last 17 years. Gina, what have you personally learned from this? From tracing people back to their roots, from people's response, from the genetic testing, and from the science of it all. If you culminated everything into one pot, one learning from Gina, what's that teaching?
That's a great question, Jodine. That's why you're Jodine. Okay. So if I pull all that together, what I've learned is how incredibly freaking powerful we are just because we are. Just because we are, we were stolen. Just because we are, we were enslaved. We were the first assets here in the United States. Just because we are, they've done these experiments on us. Just because we are, they put their knees on our necks. That's power. At every turn, they've tried to squash us. And we are still here. But the flip side of that is we don't understand that power. And I've seen that in the course of this. We don't understand who we are. And we don't understand how powerful we are. We have to remember who we are. And once we do that, as you're seeing with these protests, with these with the movement that's growing, it's because people feel good about who they are.
Yeah.
And they feel great about that Blackness. So I think that's the one thing, if I had to distill it down, is just the absolute power of being a person of African descent.
So true. So true. I know you're doing a lot of IG lives right now. African Ancestry has been lit on social media. If you've not seen African Ancestry all over the place, lit right now on social media. So thank you for
coming on as one of our guests.
Look, it's been great. What else do you guys have coming up? I know we were talking about trips a couple last year or something of the sort, and COVID kind of like shut that down for us real quick. But is there anything else that we can expect from African Ancestry? What's coming up next?
That's great. You're just asking me all the great questions. So we're actually working on a campaign that I'm so excited about, Jodine. I'm really excited about that. I can't quite say what it is yet, but I'm really excited about its relevance and its timeliness. But in the immediate future, so we go live on Instagram to talk up to our family members. So my goal with that series is for people to hear from people who've taken the test. Don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to people who work for African Ancestry. Hear the people who've done it themselves, whether they've gotten African results or some other result. Like, we just put it out there for everyone to share. But on Wednesdays, we go live on Facebook. And so for Black Music Month, we had a series. We dissected the djembe. We talked to Dee Dee Bridgewater about her CD, Red Earth, a Malian Journey. We actually sprinkled some non-music in there because we talked about how other countries, African countries, celebrate independence. But the series we have coming up, starting next week, is about rituals. So we're going to be talking about adornment. We're going to be talking about altars and veneration. We're going to be talking about rites of passage, naming.
Oh, this is gonna be good. Oh, this is gonna be good.
I'm really looking forward to this, and we have some of the best minds that can teach us about these areas. And then for the adornment one, I don't think you've met Ashley, but one of my friends, and she's a family member and she's a colleague, Ashley Company of Jelani Women Travel. She's actually going to come on, and we're going to pull in some people who are watching, and she's going to show us how to wrap our heads without looking at the mirror.
Wow.
So she has these techniques. So we're going to have all these people up on the screen looking crazy, girl, trying to wrap our heads. It's going to be fun.
I love it. I love it. I shall be there. I shall be there for sure.
You do head wraps really.
Oh yeah, I do. But I'm always trying to learn a quick trick to make it like look better and fuller and more significant. Because sometimes it just looks like a mouchoir, as we say in Haiti. It's like a mouchoir on my head, and that's it.
Something else we just did, Jodine, that was really cool. There's an organization you're familiar with called The Links
Yes.
Incorporated.
Yes.
And so we just did a huge reveal with almost 80 links during their National Assembly online. Wow. That was really fun.
Wow. And that's another thing that I love that you do. You do these reveals and folks who are having these family reunions, you're having family meetings over Zoom, birthday parties. One of the things I love is that reveal moment. I remember us having a reveal, and if I'm not mistaken, it's on my website. If it's not out, it's on YouTube. But just getting that reveal, hearing about your history and how you typically find the characteristics of that group of people and related to right now. Like
Yeah.
that's it's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's happy and hurtful. That's all I can say about reveals. It's like the most happiest, most hurtful experience.
That's so funny. I love George Jodine though, because you had seen a million reveals. You had seen me do it time and time again. And so I was like, oh, I don't even know why she wants one, because she's been through this. But you were completely, you were like, couldn't even really talk.
No, I shut down because I didn't want to get too emotional. I didn't want to, because it was a lot of, like I said, it was that realization that my story is real.
Mm-hmm.
The realization that my story was real. So you go through a whole emotional roller coaster once you hear the reveal. So that's, yeah, I was in shock. My sister was doing all the talking.
I know, thank goodness like, your sister was there.
I've got to ask you the last question I'm going to ask Gina, and I'll definitely let you go. But just, you know, we've talked about Blackness. We've talked about this time that we're in right now. So many people, so many businesses capitalizing on Black Lives Matter, us having this surge of celebration of being Black, me and you kind of being skeptical, a little side eye about it all. Is there a silver lining? Is there a silver lining to what we're experiencing right now when we talk about Blackness?
Yes, absolutely. The silver lining is we're talking about it, and it's in people's faces, and they're forced to have to acknowledge it, at least acknowledge it. And in many cases, they're forced to have to go along with it, whether they have fully embraced it or not. They gotta, you know, peer pressure is real, right?
Right.
And I think about too, the other silver lining for me is the realization of just how fortunate people like me are and people like you are. So I grew up in DC. My parents went to Howard. I knew that there were Black doctors and Black professionals and Black professors, and that there were Black people doing big things. I grew up in Chocolate City, right? I learned about our history from the beginning. This was not something that I had to learn when I was 40 or when I was 30. I've grown up knowing all of this. I don't know everything. I don't mean to say it like that. I've grown up exposed to Black history.
Right. To be a critical thinker and to have an open mind.
Right. Yeah. And to understand who we are, how we got here, what our experience has been while we're here. And everybody doesn't get that. Everybody doesn't. I met a guy by phone who grew up in Utah, Black guy who grew up in Utah. He was 45 when he started learning Black history. And he was just wide-eyed, like, I can't believe everybody needs to know this. And I was like, yeah, they do, but a lot of us already do know this. So I think that's the other silver lining, is that it just reinforces what we already know.
I love it.
Know to be true for ourselves, what I already know to be true for myself. And then I can be excited about other people who are coming into this knowledge.
Not mad at all with the exposure, not mad at all with the knowledge of self that is happening. And Gina, thank you for 17 plus years of giving people that knowledge of self. That is key in the empowerment and in the movement of our people and the progression of our people. The story is yet untold. There's so much more to it, and I'm excited. Thank you so much, Dr. Paige. Thank you so much for all that you do. I appreciate you. And Silver Lining is here to be an advocate for African ancestry. I think that's something that everyone must experience.
Jodine, thank you. You have been a champion, an advocate, a homegirl. You've been all of those things, a French fry eating companion. Through this whole, through the entire time that I've known you, which I think we met maybe like in 2012 or
13.
Yeah, back in Atlanta. But anyway, you have been consistently supportive of African ancestry, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for that. And I have a silver lining for your viewers.
Yes.
So I created a discount code, a promo code that is silver lining, all one word. And so if you are down with Jodine Dorsey, if you are a supporter of the silver lining, then you can use that code at AfricanAncestry.com and save $25 off any African ancestry test kit. And you know, it is the best, one of the best decisions that you'll make in terms of your sense of self. And we make it easy. So there's a discount code for you. Plus, we offer Affirm. So if you want to pay for it in installments, you can use Affirm. One test gives you results for your entire family. So Jodine, you got a rack of brothers and sisters and cousins and aunties and uncles. There's a whole bunch of y'all.
Yeah.
When you took that test, your one test was the same for all of them on your mother's side. And so some people just pass the hat around the family, like, you know, give me 20 bucks, give me 20 bucks, and they go in and get a test. So there are a lot of ways that you can get this information. And it is my pleasure to be able to offer that silver lining for your viewers.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so that's silver lining promo code just for viewers, you guys, and listeners. So you guys push out and definitely be part of this. Be part of this movement of knowledge of self. So thank you so much, Dr. Gina Paige. We appreciate you.